All right, let's get going. Hello and welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and in this video I want to share my thoughts on the new age that I think we are moving into as a human species. I haven't really seen too many sources talking about this type of thing, so I wanted to be kind of at the forefront of not only coining a name for the period that I think we're going into, but also providing some details as to why I gave it the specific name that I did. So as always, I hope you can take something away from this video, and with that being said, let's get right into it. So for a little bit of background before I get into my main talking points, I hope the majority of us at least are familiar with the different ages, or at least some of the different ages that we have kind of transitioned to since the very beginning of what we would call a human, right? There's quite a few different ages that have been coined over the generations. Some of the most notable ones probably being like the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Age of Enlightenment, and so on. And of course, each of these ages are kind of characteristic of certain things. For example, for the Stone Age, which is divided into, at least how I understand it, divided into three different sections: the Paleolithic, the Mesolithic, and the Neolithic periods. Each of them kind of have their own key events that occurred in each. The Paleolithic part of me mainly being us as hunter-gatherers, right? This is our very beginning as humans, essentially. The Mesolithic being fishing occurring, some small tools and so on, and of course the Neolithic being having periods of more sedentary life, right? We have farming and so on. And of course, following the Stone Age was the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. There's a lot of different things that that happened throughout this period. More notably, I think, for the Bronze Age was having small cities and having a little bit of structure to day-to-day life. Also using bronze for tools and so on. And the Iron Age was really mega cities, right? This is like Greece. This is having structure. People have roles and, all of those kind of things. But I don't want this video to be a history lesson by any means, because we're talking about the now, right? I want to talk about what I think of the period that we are moving into, basically 2025 and onward. So the name for this age that I have very cleverly thought of for this period is the Atavistic Age. Now you're probably thinking, well, what does this mean? What does the word atavism mean? And why is Noah deciding to use it for his description of this period that we're kind of moving into? If you do have an extensive vocabulary, some people do, maybe you know what the word atavism means at this point, and you're probably kind of putting the pieces together of what I'm trying to get at with this video. But if you don't, the word atavism is essentially a word described to depict a reversal to something ancient, to something from a very, very long time ago. And in the context of this video, of my, coining this age, the atavism age, is that I believe we are moving backwards in time mentally from periods far long ago. I think there's a few different reasons for this, and I know there's probably going to be quite a few people that disagree with me and think that this is maybe the dumbest video that they've ever seen, and I'm okay with that, right? Because these are just kind of things that I think about and that are relevant to me. So I want to provide at least a few decent examples of why I believe we are actually in an age that we are reverting to our more ancestral brain functionality, if you want to call it like that. Maybe that's not the right term to use, but generally speaking, I feel like we are moving backwards as a society as far as some of our normal cognitive functions go. Now, one of the biggest reasons why I think we are moving into this age of not using, I'm speaking plainly here, but not using our full potential mentally, right? Not using our brain power is with the advent of a lot of these AI tools, right? These artificial intelligence tools that have taken a lot of speed, from a lot of different things going on in the world right now. And it is kind of a weird place, at least as of June 22nd, 2025. I think just yesterday, which was Saturday, I think we had the U.S. government had bombed Iran or something like that, right? So there's a lot of different other weird things going on in the world right now. But one of the things that has really caught on in the last maybe 3 years or so are these AI tools, right? These LLMs that are people are chatting with. They're having create art. They're having create music, lyrics, stories, help with homework, help with this, and it's quite a time, right? There's a lot of hype about this in the media with companies like NVIDIA that utilize their technologies to help run these AI programs, AI tools, and so on. So there's basically a lot of discussion about it, right? A lot of hype about it. And when you really get into it, what are these tools doing? And at least in my personal opinion, these tools are kind of eliminating the need for people to think, right? And this is kind of an interesting topic because we do want to make life easier, right? That's, companies want to make life easier. We want to make our own lives easier. We want to make our life easier for our kids, for our coworkers, for our family, for our neighbors and so on. So that's kind of the goal. But what I worry about is that these tools are going to be implemented in people's lives from the very beginning, when they start learning, right? Well, this is like age 6 or age 7, and into the future. And I worry what the thing that's going to happen is that we are going to become so heavily reliant on these tools that we will start to lose problem solving abilities. We will start to lose the ability to really ingest information and hold on to information for prolonged periods of time, to really kind of internalize a lot of problem solving skills and so on, because we are going to have these tools to just be able to type in the question to and have them spit something back out to us. I think part of the process of learning and developing mentally and maturing is kind of going through, I don't want to say hardships necessarily, but learning is a hardship, right? You have to literally open your mind to look at things differently, to understand geometry, for example, to understand designing, to understand architecture and so on. You need to that's the best way to put it. You need to open your mind. And like I said, I worry that with these tools, obviously, in their current state, they are the worst that they will ever be. And some tools are pretty impressive at this point. A lot of issues still, quite a few issues actually, but they are the worst that they will be right now. So I can only imagine how good they're going to be in 5, 10, 15 years. It's actually scary to think about. But what I worry, like I said, is that this will be the norm, where we won't be we won't be forced, I don't want to say forced in school too, but you're incentivized to develop cognitive problem solving just with you, right? Teachers are there to kind of tell you how to do it, to guide you in the right direction, but ultimately it's your job to sit down, open a book, draw, graph, and make it make sense in your head. But if we have these tools that are basically feeding us the answers for everything, I think we're going to lose that, right? And over time, maybe for example, if I'm one of these AI tool kids that grows up with it and doesn't have the traditional schooling where I need to kind of work for things and I can just type in and get answers, maybe my kids are going to have something missing, right, mentally, right? They're not going to be able to do something. And over time, that's kind of what happens, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And this is the same. I think this is very prevalent genetically with, passing on your traits and characteristics and your strengths and so on, with reproduction and so on. So I don't know. I really do kind of think about this. I don't think there's a lot of research on this right now, just because of how adolescent everything is. I think I did hear about some research that was done where they compared kids that had the tool, that were using AI tools to do things, versus kids that didn't, and they measured that maybe things didn't stick with them as much. And that makes sense too, where why would you want to internalize something that you can just keep looking up over and over again, right, using these tools? So That's one of the bigger reasons why I think we are actually going to lose some of our cognitive ability, is because these tools are meant to take away a lot of that problem solving, take away a lot of that thinking, that we previously, basically for everybody's lives, we basically had to have to be successful in work and basically in life in general. One of the other things that I think is prevalent and contributes to this age of mental degeneration, right? Atavism, kind of going back to simpler times, is that we are, if you just kind of look around in media, right, and applications, what people are using very frequently throughout their day, right? What takes up a lot of their hours? I think the trend is relatively consistent, where they're kind of conditioning kids and adults too to be very short-sighted, to be very transient, to be very to not invest long periods of time into something, to not actually focus in on something for prolonged periods of time, to concentrate. It's very kind of the term that I've heard a lot is this TikTok brain syndrome or whatever, right? Where people can only retain information in 60-second intervals, and then after that 60 seconds or whatever it is, they need to move on to something new. They need to move on to a different topic. They need to move on to this, move on to that. And for me, this just really sounds kind of like ADD, ADHD, right? And of course, this is no slight to anybody that has that condition. I don't know if it's called a condition necessarily, but anybody that deals with that. But this is, I think, problematic, right? Because if we, from a young age, right, we're giving kids these phones, and everybody, every young kid basically has a smartphone now. It's actually a little scary for me, because I know that I didn't have a smartphone until I was like a sophomore in high school. It was actually my first phone and my first smartphone. It was the iPhone 5, I think, something like that, the really thin one or whatever. But I see kids that attend an elementary school in my neighborhood here, and they're all, every time they're walking home, they have their phones out, and these are like third and fourth graders and so on. And no doubt they are using these type of applications, right, along with pretty much everybody else. And when you use these applications, it's very clear to see what the goal is here. It's to keep people going back on them, right? It's these short bursts of different content to just keep them engaged, but only for certain small periods of time before they give you something else to look at and bring you down another rabbit hole. And like I say, I think I don't know how it's going to turn out in the future, but I think this is going to raise a bunch of kids that cannot focus for long periods of time, that cannot retain that they can't retain information for long periods of time. The biggest thing for me, like I just mentioned, is actually focusing on things, right? We need people that can stay attentive and focused on problems for sometimes weeks at a time, depending on the type of project it is at your work. For me, I've had ongoing projects that have lasted months at my work, where I've had to continuously remember what was occurring, with this project, and kind of go back to it and, loop everything together. But if you lose that ability to stay focused and concentrate for long periods of time, I think this is going to affect our workforce. I think it's going to affect people's relationships with one another, because, at the end of the day, humans are very, very complicated, right? And oftentimes we need to sit down and really listen to what someone's saying and actually focus on what they're saying, rather than giving them 10 seconds and then not being able to concentrate on anything after that. And this is actually kind of interesting, because I've seen this in individuals even close to my age, where we will be having a conversation and they just can't hold on to that conversation. They just, for whatever reason, mentally, it's just they can't recollect what I had said a little bit ago. They can't recollect what we were kind of talking about. It's just, it needs to move to a new conversation. It needs to move to something new, to something new, to something new. And so it's very interesting to see, because I'm quite the opposite, where, I could focus in on a certain topic for hours, right? And actually revisit what I had spoken about, what we had spoken about hours ago. And it basically paints this whole picture. So seeing it in in individuals that are similar to my age, and I'm 28, is very alarming. It's very interesting, but not in a good way, like I said, because at the end of the day, we want our future generations to be better in every way than us, right? We want them to be smarter. We want them to be able to focus more. We want their problem solving to be better than ours. We want their reading to be better than ours. We want their nutrition to be better. Their, every lifestyle choices to be better. But I feel like a lot of these applications, media that are being put in front of kids nowadays is not conducive to that. I think it's, like I said, more conducive to this. Basically everybody having ADD, and maybe everybody's on Adderall at some point, at some point in their life. And then you have a kind of a dependency issue with that as well. So that's another reason why I think we are in the age of atavism. The third and final kind of talking topic that I want to leave with you guys today, and I know the video is kind of going on a little bit longer than I would have liked, but these are it's not easy to kind of cram this into a few minute video, right? And I have this feeling that if you do stick around, this long in my videos, a lot of my videos do carry into the 20-minute mark. You are the small population that can actually focus on something and hear someone out for everything that they have to say. So if you are still here, I do really appreciate you being able to hang on to this conversation. Well, it's a conversation with myself, technically, but you guys kind of get the point. But the third thing, the third detail that I kind of see in the world today, that I believe is kind of pushing us back in time, are art forms, are forms of entertainment. And the best example that kind of resonates with me, because I have a passion in it, is movies and TV. And I love good movies and I love good TV, right? Because these art forms are supposed to they're supposed to take us out of the world that we're in and put us in the world that these characters are living in, right? Even if it is for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah. Sometimes a series can go hours and hours and hours, and we're supposed to be, infatuated basically with that, artificial world for that period of time. And sometimes it does work. But what I've noticed with a lot of the, especially film and TV, is that the stories are becoming horrible. They're so bad. And what's interesting is that when you actually depict, or when you're actually watching movies, for example, and you pick apart the whole timeline, there are so many gaps where things do not make sense in normal reality. Think of it this way. In your day-to-day life, right, everything kind of makes sense, right? You wake up because you have to go to work. You're stressed because you have to go to work. You're hungry because you didn't eat breakfast. And all of these things kind of make sense in your day-to-day life, right? You come home and then you make dinner and you watch TV and you see your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, and you have an interaction with them. Everything makes sense. But these movies that I'm watching, even if they aren't fantasy movies where things are a little bit stretched, the interactions people to people don't make sense. What people are saying would not be said in a normal world, right? This is so confusing for me, because these are supposed to be written by people that are very cognizant about how stories are supposed to be told, about how people interact with one another, and they don't do it. And I feel like a lot of the artistic styles within film are kind of really cliched at this point, right? There's nothing truly original that has really come in some time, or at least not one that stands out to me. And I think this is truly a shame, because like I previously mentioned, where we want our future generations, our kids, to be better than we are, we also kind of expect the same thing with basically everything else in life, right? I'm speaking to a camera right now. In 5 years, is there supposed to be a better camera than what I'm using right now? There should be, right? And oftentimes I think the same is true with art forms, right? Art should, it's really unique in that it's supposed to kind of elevate our experience. It's supposed to take us away from the real world. It's supposed to make us think about our own life, and if what we're doing in our day-to-day is right. That's what art is, right? It's supposed to move us. It's supposed to make us feel something. And these movies, like I said, for example, have huge budgets, right? Millions and hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on these endeavors, to not move us at all, to actually move us in the direction of annoyance, of hatred sometimes for the art form. And I feel like being exposing these to young kids, right? You know, if you grow up watching shit basically and ingesting shit, you're not going to know any better, right? You're not going to know what something good is, because everything that you've been given is trash. And this is very problematic for me, right? Because although, you know, I'm by no means any kind of artist or anything like that, I've been able to have experiences where different art forms have made me think of the world differently, made me better is probably the better way to put it. But if kids don't have that, right? If kids don't have something good to look up to, you know, good heroes in stories, good stories, just stories that make sense in movies and TV and so on, where are we going, right? We're not moving forward. What is going to happen, right? Are people just going to become horrible storytellers? I don't really know. But that's kind of just one of the examples that is really clicks with me, like I said, because I have this passion for really creative art forms within the TV and film industry and so on. But recently it's very, very difficult to find something that's even remotely good, which is, like I said, which is going back in time, because we've already had good things in the future. So we should be getting, you know, our percentage for good film and TV should be getting higher over time, because we've had all of these lessons learned in the past. But it is something that I've noticed, quite recently here. But there you go. I know, like I said, the video went on a little bit longer. I'm at the 26 mark at this point, but these are some of my thoughts as to why I think we are in a new age, right? We are in a new age of going back in time, basically, to a simpler mental state, right? Despite all the technology that we have in the world right now, we were almost given too much, to the point where we've become complacent, and we will, continue to become complacent. And what that's going to do is it's going to take away from our fundamental abilities to problem solve without these tools, to draw conclusions without these tools, and so on. So I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that I feel grateful for the period that I'm in right now, where I've had to learn everything kind of the hard way, and I have these tools to supplement the knowledge that maybe I don't remember. But I do feel worried for, you know, kids and individuals that don't go through that, and they're basically handed the answers to them, right from the beginning. So we will see where things go from here. But of course, if you have anything to add to my discussion here, my thoughts here, whether it's criticism or maybe you do agree with me, please let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.